All right, we're going to be talking about anti-violence in the workplace, which is a very large initiative across the state. And really, a lot of the difference here was that OSHA, which we are aware of, make sure we're safe environmentally, is now responsible for monitoring risky situations, serious threat or risk situations to employees or death of employees on the workplace, which is very new for them. And one of the reasons that it started was because there was a highly publicized death of a social worker in a group home up on the North Shore who had been servicing this client for a while, is my understanding, and something happened. And because this was one of the first organizations OSHA went into, the behavioral health organization that was involved with this, OSHA was in there for 2 years doing auditing and observing and seeing what behavioral health was like. And the CEO of the organization, which we've been involved with on the state level, was very eloquent and really very professional and adhered to implementing a lot of things to make their employees feel safer, and was an advocate on the state level for educating other behavioral health organizations. So she was a teacher for them and also a teacher for us. She presented a few years back at the Association for Behavioral Health that I told you we're very involved in, and it was standing room only across the state. Because some of the things that we talked about around cultural diversity applies now. So this is why I'm going to ask you this. We're here today because of the complexities of the clients we serve. And we talked about this, all the things that they bring to the table. And for those who've been around for a while, I don't know, once in a while I used to have a true blue alcoholic present in treatment, right? We don't have anything that anymore, right? We have dual diagnosis, we talked about that. We talked about multi-diagnosis, head trauma, physical limitations, trauma, all of those kinds of things. And the other thing we have to put on the table as far as impulse control is, what do you think the average age is for the clients we service, maybe than years back? They're younger. They're younger because of the opioid epidemic. Mm-hmm. All right. So on top of that, we have, what's the age the frontal lobe develops for adolescents, which helps them do consequential thinking and not be as impulsive? 21 to 25. You know, I was at a recent conference and the neurologist was putting on the presentation, and he was funny. But he asked the audience, there's about 600 of us, and they said, what industry knows when the frontal lobe is developed? And one of the program directors next to me yelled out, Avis, right? You can't rent a car till you're 25. Right? They know. So, that's just another dynamic. So some of the things is we're dealing with a lot more psychiatric, a lot more trauma. We're dealing with the impulse control. We're dealing with severe psychosis. We're dealing with a lot of things we've never had to deal with historically. So there's a lot more demands and complexities of who we're servicing. I also want to mention with this training, I forgot at the beginning, is we do anti-violence in the workplace training at every program. It's a 2.5-hour training. And we actually work with the employee populations to look at the environment and to see what we can do to make them feel safer in the workplace. It's been a strong commitment. So I'm going to ask, how many of you have been seriously threatened, or you or your property has been seriously violated by a client, former client, an employee, a former employee? Whether you were working in a building or in the community. So how many people have been seriously threatened? Okay? It may happen, right? And it may never happen. And there's all types of threats. Okay? The thing that's important here is the defining serious threat. And I think that's based on the person receiving the threat. And to never discount that something may occur with maybe a client saying they're going to do something to the program or the property or whatever the case may be, or it could be something said to an individual employee and that employee just like, oh whatever. But 4 other employees, if it was said to them, may be affected. So we have to be true to ourselves. We define that serious threat of how vulnerable we feel. Okay? So what types of threats have you experienced? What have people said to you? Said those are your serious threats. What was the situation? Yep.
So, it was a client in the women's facility, and she kind of developed, I guess, this crush.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, it was just like phone calls to the facility, and then somehow she Googled me, and then it was phone calls to the house, and I just kind of blew it off, like, you know,
That's scary.
yeah, I just kind of blew it off, like, you know, it's not a big deal. But then the phone calls went back to the facility, so the people, there were multiple, and it started every day and all day long,
gosh.
and during the middle of the night, and so that was when my supervisor, we talked about it, and we talked about it with some other people, and we ended up having to like do police reports on some of the phone calls.
Yep. And that's important. But again, sometimes, like initially, you say, well, really, it's not serious. You'll
That was
talk
my
about it
first thought,
tomorrow.
like, it's not a
Yeah.
big deal, she's
But it
sick.
progressed.
Yeah,
And that's scary. Talk about vulnerable. Then once it hits the home,
that was when I was like,
that was it. That's your own. That's yours.
yeah.
And even before that, we have to take it seriously. Anybody else? Yeah.
Working with the homeless in the outreach center, we have to go do point counts
Mm-hmm.
to get an idea as the homeless population. And we came
Homeless.
across a village near the railroad tracks, and as we approached one of the tents to get the survey filled out, the guy came after us with a baseball bat.
Oh. Physically came after you.
Which is
In
why
a
we
tent
go
city.
along.
Yeah. Scary. Yeah. And yourself?
Mine was basically in the program I run. It's an automatic discharge for disruptive behavior. And the individual basically, you know, sometimes the disease is on the person.
Mm-hmm.
I had to discharge her, and she became physical, and she put her hands on me.
Oh.
So of course I didn't put her hands on her, which is, it's great, it's growth, you know. And I just took a look at her and I told her I was gonna call the police, which I didn't, because the caregiver that I am didn't want her to go to jail,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted her to get some help. But she didn't like physically hurt me. All she did was just touch my hand. You know, there's certain circumstances that we got to really know. I can't be afraid all the time. I'm working in this field. If I'm gonna be afraid all the time, I shouldn't be here.
Mm.
And but I'm here today, so
Yeah.
worked out.
And again, mine was, in the community, and someone else had a psychotic break. In the community, who had relapsed. They were under the influence.
Yeah.
So you never know. But as far as, we do a tremendous job. This will come up in CPI, and some days I do the CPI after this. Is that we do a tremendous job. It's amazing, wouldn't be more. And depending on the acute level of acute settings you worked in, it's going to be different. For people who are starting, not to scare away, but I think overall the population is a lot more challenging. Yes, did you have something?
I did. So I wanted to share with you that I suffered an assault working in a geriatric setting
Yes.
because I chose to question medication administration. And in looking up medication, I think it was, doesn't matter, but at any rate, the medication that was being prescribed and what the patient was asking for, she had said that she received both medications in conjunction, However, realizing the interaction, when they're taken in conjunction, leads to what was termed to be a Vegas cocktail. A Vegas cocktail is what it's called. And I declined to give the person both of the medications together. I said, I'll give you what you're prescribed, and should you have breakthrough or should it not work within 40 minutes, then we'll revisit, reevaluate, and remedicate. And she in turn assaulted me. And in calling the police, there was a lot of things at play there. There were cultural, racial things at play. So nonetheless, it was kind of swept and
Stop.
glossed over.
Ooh.
Yeah. It was
And-
bad.
Yeah, and so, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're saying a nurse here working in a very acute geriatric facility did have an attack by a patient over some medication. So again, and really expanding the definition is it's not just clients, it could be former clients or it could be other employees or other staff. So I want to get into, now there's staff, but staff who've left. These are all the legislative and trade organizations on the state who are now requiring that organizations have a violence in the workplace initiative. Okay, we were able to get on board a little sooner. We got a grant from the Department of Industrial Accidents, which is very unusual for behavioral health, to get that for it's not be environmental. And we brought external safety consultants in and went to every site and did training and cost analysis. And were able to implement almost at this point in time $500,000 worth of equipment, camera equipment. This is a highly secured facility, but a lot of our sites didn't have a lot of that going on. Outpatient sites, we had panic buttons, we put in half doors, we glazed windows, we put in a lot of equipment. So there is something just for you to be aware of that we're supportive of this. But a lot of the organizations across the state, and we did have the ability, we do sit on the Human Resource Association for Behavioral Health Board, who is very involved, had that CEO sitting with us on the committee, and really started doing a lot of this implementation with the different departments. So we have started this a little ahead of the game, like I said, and all I want you to know is it is something that is not going away. Organizations throughout, though, there is always this sort of fine line as far as expectations of the client population we're dealing with and organizational enabling of abusive staff. And that's an ethical thing on an ongoing basis. Yes?
I have a question on the area of, like, let's just say what happens if, like in her case, there were phone calls and stuff, but let's just say somebody, after they leave the facility, and you're out and you're in that same town,
Yep.
and you're at the grocery store, and they feel the need that they want to attack you, do you have the right to attack back?
You have to be really careful. You have to be very careful, and you're going to talk about this more
Well, that's what I mean, like.
in CPI. You're going to talk about it. But
No,
what you
because I
can
did,
do.
I'll
Right.
be honest,
Okay.
because someone tried to attack me
Yeah.
off grounds, and, yeah, I wasn't having that,
Yeah.
sorry.
So did you use any
Yeah.
techniques that you were taught in the
Yeah.
program? Okay.
Yeah, I tried,
Yeah.
but they
You guys
just
are
were
doing-
full-blown swinging,
Yeah.
so
To
I
do
was
what you
like,
have to
oh,
do.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's tough. It's a tough situation. So it's really continuing to look and ask those questions.
But I got in trouble because they went back saying blah, 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 but thank God there was a camera there,
There you
because
go.
it was self-defense.
Yeah. Well,
But I
again,
was just curious.
yeah, we're not going to lay low, right? Not do
No.
anything.
Yeah,
No,
but
it's
with her,
really-
with her, when she was getting the phone calls and plus they knew where she lived,
Yes.
suppose they would've went to her house.
Right.
Well, this is the kind of thing, and just for instance, we're really careful with this. If we've had clients or former clients Yeah, I'll just, we don't have a lot of these, but I will tell you, this is where we are. And we'll be in the sheriff's office and do a no trespass right away.
Mhm,
All
okay.
right, and you can also press charges, and we don't minimize this at
I
any
think that's what
point.
the people on the top of High Point did when I worked in that facility, is got the no trespass
Yeah.
and stuff. I don't exactly remember how it all went, but like, I felt like I played a part in what was my part, like, if I'm gonna work in this field, I don't feel like I should be so active on social media, because she ended up finding me through some sort of social media.
There
And
you
this
go.
was years ago,
Yeah.
and, you know what I mean, so.
That's a good example.
Like, you learn, I learned my lesson through that, and like, even being here in the training today, like, you know, I have a Facebook, I don't need that, you know what I mean? For me, it's just a decision that I would make
to make.
to disconnect a lot with social media, you know?
For your boundary.
Right.
Yeah. So all these things, you know, they all come into play, you know, and whatever we have, we don't minimize it. We don't minimize it all, and we'll take action. I just want to show you the OSHA standard of the requirement, right, to try to, again, provide their employees with a place that is free from recognizable hazards. Recognizable hazards. This is environmental, but also now it's the behavioral health. And this is even across the board at other organizations. There's been a 30% increase in workplace violence in the past 5 years. Did you read about it in the paper?
Mhm.
Especially in health care facilities.
Yep. And here's the workplace defined. This is in our policy and how it's defined. Any location away from an employee's home, permanent or temporary, where they're doing work for their employer. So it could be buildings, primary community, and I hope you get sufficient training on community-based supports. There's a whole safety manual on doing that. Parking lots, client's home, traveling, bringing in the halfway, whatever it is, in the course of duty, there can be risks involved. So here is some information. Here's our definition, then I'll give you some risk factors. And I want to show you YouTube at the end of this. Okay, I'm just looking at the clock. Sorry. All right. So look at this. We incorporated threats, harassment, stalking, or bullying, right, of an employee, verbally, non-verbally, written or electronic, or direct acts of violence made toward an employee. May also include witnessing the above or becoming aware of the above. Staff have all types of backgrounds. We don't get into it, but we're a mix. And so some of these situations may cause staff to feel more vulnerable. And it could be low levels of situations over a period of time, or an acute situation. And we have to pay attention and get the primary support. So our definition is current and previous clients, visitors, family members, which can be difficult. Present or former employees. I'll put on, what we've done for tightening up access to even administration and other support areas that we never had before. HR was always, when I started, an open door. HR was there. We'd come in and whatever, or staff, and not anymore. And that's not just with us. Now you got to go through an elevator, you got to go through, a locked elevator, you got to go through the third floor, you got to go through the receptionist, and nobody comes in whether they've recognized them before or not, because they, could have just been let go a few hours ago, and so you have to be careful about this stuff. So, or domestic violence into the workplace. High-risk industries. Are we in there?
Oh, yeah.
You could see it. We do all of this. This is behavioral health. So we've got behaviors. How about this? Working alone or in small numbers. This is community-based. We have some sites, 1 staff person on, 2 staff people on. Working with money. We don't usually work with money. We used to, but we had a situation and now we don't. Transportation, working in high crime areas. A lot of our sites are right in the middle of cities, you know, or right in the middle of environments which are not healthy. Now, we do a lot of screening, right? We do a lot of screening for clients that are coming in. Should not have any weapons, obviously. We should be doing the same for family members, visitors. And here we got acute mentally ill, and also the medication available in facilities. We already talked about these. I'm just going to go through this. Harassment and bullying in the workplace can involve anything, and it's again based on the person. All of these things can be verbal, nonverbal, it could be something we look at, could be environmental, could be something someone's wearing, it could be something that impacts any employee. Now, many times, if we're affected by someone, sometimes we bring it to their attention, they don't even realize, because our backgrounds are different. Oh, I didn't realize that. And even from an EAP background setting, it would be a lot of times you presented to the person was okay. If the behavior continues, there is a process we have, the problem resolution procedure. It would go probably to the supervisors, the managers, the directors, to really look at the conflict, stop the behaviors, or if required, do a formal investigation. And we have a very thorough policy called our problem resolution policy, which involves an unbiased third party looking at the whole dynamic, because we don't want to see the culture become unhealthy. All right, a few more. I won't give you that. I like this. Bullying is psychological violence, right? And we can have all of these things as bullying. And we know sexual harassment can take a lot of different forms as well. Cyberbullying, social media. And there are a lot of things that now, and actually you can track what is going on with social media, whether it's employee to employee or someone else has been able to access. So one of the things I want to do to sort of keep this on target, and I do want to say that all of the behavioral health agencies, and we have a very extensive anti-violence policy, and when we go to your sites, we will actually give you surveys of what would make you feel safer at your site. And we did that when the consultants came in, and we went in front of 700 employees and 80 members of the management group and got 300 surveys and compiled them, and it was presented to safety, and a lot of these things were implemented, we talked about, to the vice presidents. Now, if there's a survey, it will go to the safety committee. They're anonymous, who will review the recommendation, and then it go up to corporate if it's a major expenditure. So there is a tracking, and there's something that we'll be doing on an ongoing basis. The other thing that's happening statewide is also we have to take a look at, and I have a passion for this. Anyway, we also have to take a look at keeping employees safe as feasible, as it says. But also across the board, there is a lot of that's in place for the school systems in regards to weapons in the workplace. Okay? Or someone making a threat to cause physical damage to an environment. And a lot of those protocols across the educational system are what we used to hear a lot about, lockdowns. And a lot of the more prominent procedures now are not just lockdown, but having a communication center where part of the operation may be locked down and other people may be allowed to exit, which is really the most effective. And when we've gone to trainings on this, it's been amazing to listen to a lot of the things that used to happen in the school systems There's actual tapes of Columbine and the women in the library, where everything was fully closed down, and how the students were almost targets instead of doing both. So there's a lot in the behavioral health industry that is looking on protocol, working with the police departments of setting up one or two certain organizations that do this, that are more not just locked down, but how to keep everybody safe and the clients safe. And we have had, you know, you always think it won't happen, but we had a couple recent situations where we did drills, and it was pretty effective because we've got a lot of cameras now in a lot of places, and we can see what would be helpful and not helpful. So that we're getting to that. So one of the YouTubes I want to show you is about, it's a couple minutes, and I think it's in a couple slides, but I want to keep on target. A lot of times it precedes, there is signs, and when I used to do stress debriefing, when I did EAPs, people would look back at the situation, there was always, oh, I should have noticed, right? Or I should have did this, or there's always something after the fact. So we'll just take a look at this. Let me just go through a few of these slides. And we talk about vicarious trauma and post PTSD for staff. Here's our problem resolution policy. It's an HR policy. You can look it right up. No retaliation, no discussion while it's going on, and we adhere to that. Now, I'm not going to get too much. When we go to the offices, we will try to look at what's safe. Here's my YouTube. Okay, so I don't know if maybe someone else, I don't want to keep asking you, would turn off turn off the lights. That may be helpful. Turn off the lights. Okay, we're going to try this. Now that Ken's not here, might work right away. It does. Give it a second. I made it a bit late.
She can't take half of my money. I'm the one who worked for it. You're a lawyer. Do something about it. She's getting the house too? What are you, blind? Hey, this is my parking space.
Come on, Mark, I got here before you did.
Mark, there are plenty of other parking areas back there. Mind your own business. This is between me and her.
Look, you saw me use a turn signal.
It's ridiculous to get upset over a parking space. Jeez. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Can you hear that back there?
Hey.
Yes.
Hey, Leah.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, good luck at that presentation today.
Have a good day. So what is eating Mark? He used to be one of the nicer guys around here.
I know. He's been really difficult to work with lately. The other day in a meeting, I heard he left in a huff, and last week at lunch, okay, I saw it. He totally flipped out because the waitress got his order wrong.
Well, I heard he was going through a really messy divorce.
Oh, that's no reason to threaten your coworker, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We should go to HR.
I really don't want to do that. I don't want to spend my whole morning at HR. Hi.
Hello.
Hey.
I heard about what happened in the parking garage. Are you okay?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just not a great way to start your morning.
No kidding.
How did you hear?
Office gossip. But don't worry, I will take care of it. Okay?
Thank you.
No problem.
Gotcha.
All right. See you.
See you.
Bye.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks.
You wanted to see me?
Yeah, please have a seat.
I'll stand.
Would you mind closing the door, please? Mark, I heard about the incident today in the parking garage. I have to tell you, there have been some consistent complaints about your aggressive behavior, and that type of behavior is not acceptable here. Do you understand? I also need to speak with you about your performance lately. Your work quality's been very poor, and we've decided that we need to place you on a probationary period of 1 month. We'll be evaluating you weekly, and at the end of that period, if we don't see some significant improvement, then there will be some serious consequences. Mark, you could lose your job over this.
Fine.
Do you want to discuss this further? I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
No. Are we done here?
Yes, we're done.
This is it. I can't take this anymore.
That's it.
Dealing with an active shooter in the workplace.
Oh, I forgot I had this slide. So, what do you think could have been done differently?
He should have said to her he was having a problem or something. When she said, could she, whatever she said to him. She was really, she probably wouldn't even, gave him probation if he would have talked to her and told her what was going on. But she just seemed like a nice lady.
Okay, all right. So if he was able to, self-disclose a bit, okay? Ask for help ahead
Yeah.
of time, yeah?
And sometimes when people are going through situations, they don't necessarily know what's best to do or know the best manner to act. She, as a human resource person, instead of, well, it was nice that she presented the facts and was just really straightforward, but if she saw that he was disturbed, agitated, or overcome with his situation, maybe even having a personal chat with him, do you know what I mean? Just trying to unpack whatever it was that he was dealing with, and possibly referring to EAP as opposed to, adding to his situation and mentioning, the termination, because maybe now he felt threatened, and
Right.
that was his only way of reacting. I don't know.
So in his assumption, it's HR or admin or something like that. And again, there was something ahead of time that could have been done, because there seemed to be a pattern, like you said, saying, help you unpack it and present something sooner, as far as an option like EAP or something. How about anybody else?
She
Yeah.
could have had like a counselor present, or maybe not a counselor, but someone else present.
Someone else
just
present?
because he was exhibiting aggressive behavior,
Yep.
and that can be scary for like
Right.
person.
I didn't know if someone could click one of those, just because I don't know if they can see me in the camera. I'm sorry. I don't care if they can see me in the camera. I never look at these. Whoa, that was a double. No, it's Al. So we've got that. What else was not handled well?
She was gossiping as a supervisor. She
Yeah.
shouldn't have did that.
Okay.
And basically, when she approached him, he automatically, without knowing, would probably think that the female was the one that told her.
Yeah.
And could have went straight to the female, and she didn't disclose anything.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Could have went straight and shot the female and she didn't really disclose any information about what happened in the
Right,
morning.
she didn't want to disclose, she didn't want to spend 3 hours in HR, but I wouldn't want to spend 3 hours in HR. No, I'm kidding. What else?
Offered outside help,
Offered outside help. know,
resources.
There's an identification of a situation that she said, we've seen a pattern of this.
Right.
Nobody's done anything.
Mhm.
And always there's a sense of, oh, it's not going to go anywhere and I don't want to report it. That's a natural process, the denial. So even though she saw a pattern, not just the garage incident, should have been reported, looked into way ahead of time with another professional. What else? What about the posturing? Clenching, right? I mean, he is so tight. He's ready to blow. So someone brings him in the office, closes the door with the power suit, and I'm sorry, she doesn't blink, leans over the table. I'm surprised he didn't go for the jugular.
I
And then
thought he
says,
was. I
His
did
job,
say
I thought when the first time I saw him, I did. Your job's on, here, let's give you another one. Let's give you another one. It's almost like, you know, and there's an assumption what he does or doesn't do, but it's always, you know, in retrospect, as soon as there's a flicker, you start addressing it from a preventive way, because you never know when it can go there. And you're gonna say
I
something.
was gonna say, they spoke a lot about it, but there was no documentation. She could have seen it on video, or maybe his work performance wasn't up to par, but they had no real
Yeah.
paper documentation
Nothing was done.
right,
Yeah.
so that's troubling.
Alright. So a lot of things, in a little retrospect, just to keep oneself safe. So anyway, that's a little tidbit on anti-violence. End the show. All right. All right. I also want to talk a little bit about trauma-informed care. Anybody here trauma-informed care? Okay, you're going to be hearing about it. Okay? And I just started. Do you want to end it?
I'm really good at timing, aren't I?
Oh my gosh! We just had our YouTube. We talked about it.